Goodness to you, this Sporty King. And yeah, I'm running just a smidget behind, but I'm on time because goodness is what it's all about. And that is, I say goodness because I don't know whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening that you're watching and enjoying this Glue broadcast. But I'm so glad to have you on it. Okay, so welcome, and welcome to recognize that you want to have goodness as your salutation because whether it's morning, noon, or evening, isn't it great to have good in your salutation? All right, my goodness. Okay, so I'm on only a minute early, so I'm going to be pushing it, but we're still going to relax. This is our time. Because the thing is, we have to recognize that it is Glue Wednesday. And I created Glue Wednesday, Glue, Glue Wednesday, because so often people call Wednesday hump day. And I say, well, you know what? I want to put a little positive twist on it. Hump has the connotation of the need to get over. And see, old school rules, we created hump day based on a 5-day, Monday to Friday work week. And so that's why it was hump day, the day to get over. And so I said, well, you know what? We had flex time back then. We just didn't recognize it. We didn't give it the props that it deserves. But Wednesday is the middle of a traditional 7-day week, regardless of when you work. So it's the day that keeps the week beginning and the weekend together. And see, that puts me in a wonderful pose that I love, and that is the prayerful pose. And that is when we're in that prayerful pose, what are we doing? We're giving homage to God. And so Glue Wednesday is Glue, recognizing that God's love undoes everything. Not that it will tear it apart, but that which is torn apart will be put back together through the love of God. So I come on a little early to get the shout outs. I usually come on 5 minutes early. So even if you're watching the video, I'm gonna take a breath here and let us get some people on. All right. Because I got a nice little addition to today's message. And I want to make sure that everybody who can will get a chance to enjoy it. So let me give you quickly a little history on why people used to call why people named Wednesday Hump Day. See, Hump Day, it actually appeared in the early 60s, and it was through the work process where people said, well, Monday to Friday are the climbing days. See, they saw the work week as a mountain to climb. So Monday to Tuesday were the climbing days. They were psychologically difficult. How many times have you said, oh my God, it's another Monday and it's tough? Okay, so that's why people thought that Monday and Tuesday were the climbing days. Wednesday is the highest part of the proverbial mountaintop. See, because they say we got to get over the mountain. Okay, we made it to Wednesday. We're going to be able to do it. And then Thursday and Friday, we just slope on down because now we start looking forward to the weekend. So it's psychological. It's psychological, but that is also a good, like I said, you can't make this stuff up. That's a good segue into what we're talking about today and every day. Psychological. How good are you at controlling your thoughts and your mind? And how do you do that? You control your surroundings. Ladies and gentlemen, it's so important to always, let me not use always because I hate to use extremes, always and never, but as much as possible, you want to be in control of your surroundings and what's going on in your life and who comes into your life. That's something you always hear me talk about, is who's coming into your life. And today, that's definitely something we're going to be talking about. And in fact, we're going to get rolling on that because if you're watching the video, it's just fine. And as people come in on the live, you know how we roll. We will make that happen with them just as well. So let's get moving on Glue Wednesday. And what we're also looking at is, I've decided that since Wednesday is the glue instead of the hump. See, the hump means I need to get over. The glue means I need to keep it together. I started Glue Wednesday actually back in 2017. Where I was doing it every Wednesday. Then when the pandemic hit in late 2019, I switched to Glue Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so I was coming up with a message every other day. Then I decided, you know what? I need to make this a little easier on me and a little bit more inclusive as well. So then I created what I call the GAS series. And GAS is GAS is the Glue Alphabet series, where every week I would feature a certain letter of the alphabet, and I would tell you, the viewer, to put a word that begins with the next letter that we're going to use in the chat, and then I would make you my co-authors for the following week. And I see we got somebody on. I also come on early. I'll be happy to do the shout out. Let me know where you're viewing in from, because I'm coming across. This is streaming across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I would love to see where you're calling in from, viewing in from, so I can click on your name and let everybody else see it as well. You know, we got to get our shout outs across multimedia. See, it isn't your message, because all of us have a message. Your message has to reach more than one person. And RR, you can put a shout out in there as well. You can slip one in there too, so don't worry about that. Yep. So yeah, let me know where you're viewing in from, and I'll keep moving on with the glue comments that I've got here. But the GAS series was created so I get more people, and what they would do is you would give me a word beginning with the letter of the week, and my job was to get that word into the message. Sometimes it influenced what the message would be. Sometimes it did not, but it was always a case of me getting an opportunity to exercise my creativity, and in fact, therefore, show you how creative I am, which guess what? Translated into how creative you can be. Because just as easily as someone would say, well, how did you do that? And then I say, well, you just do this. Oh my God, I never thought of that. It's not as hard as it looks. What it takes is confidence. And you have to consistently find ways to be confident in who you are. And again, that's why I say glue. God's love undoes everything. You want to keep it together. So today, what we're going to do is feature the letter R. And then, so my co-authors for today are Daphne Francis, who gave me the word. She gave me two words. She actually thought she was giving me one, but I stole one of the other ones from her. And that is rewind and relate. And then Jose Valencia gave me rejoice. Victor Morris gave me remember. And Lorenzo Clemons gave us remonstrate. Okay, we got our first shout out. All right. Hey, Zelda coming in from Chicago, the GAS series. Thanks. And she know, yeah, I always use my sportyism down. And Zelda has Zelda-ism. Whatever your name is, just put it in front of the word isms and think about the philosophy and blessings that you share with people. And then you give it. Whenever you give advice, it's an ism from you. So thank you, my sister Z. Shalometh. So good to see you. That's what is that, a Yoruba name? Throw it in, Izzy, and let us know what you got. Okay. So my co-authors, as I just mentioned, for today are these people. Okay. Now, what will happen is where am I? You'll see their names. You'll see the co-author's name and the word streaming across the bottom, like you see right now, as we discuss them like that. And then what you'll also notice is that there will be times where we'll use a version or definition of the word rather than the actual word. So even though Daphne gave me rewind, I might say rewinding or rewound. Okay, just to give you an example. Okay, there we go. Zelda says, Shalom is peace in Hebrew. Yes, because I always remember peace. And peace, by the way, P-E-A-C-E, placing eternity above chaos and evil. And so that's why that's a great word to share. Oh my God, Toy coming in from Chicago. So what's going on? Oh, and you know what? I knew. And Toy, I know you jumped in, and I'm going to see what I can do for you, Toy. But the word is you're going to end up as a co-author. You put a word for next week's letter. But because you got this in there, I bet you I'm going to get the word revive in there. And that becomes part, again, of the creativity, is you can't make this stuff up. There's so much more synchronicity in our lives. But what happens is people tend to focus on the different. They look for the differences and focus on them, but then they focus on the negativity. We have to have differences. Don't just decide that a difference is good when you talk about it being unique. Decide that a difference is good at all times. So I'm going to get Revive in there for you, Toy. But anyway, let me speed up here, okay? Because today, one thing I always do is I have what I call a guiding scripture. And today's guiding scripture is Proverbs 22:6, which says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that guiding scripture gets us to today's message, which is, what does it take? What does it take? Okay. And this is where I laugh about how I tell you I stole from Daphne, because today's message was actually birthed 2 glues ago on August 17th, when Daphne Francis, she tuned in with less than 2 minutes to go to the message because she was doing something. And that message that day was when to use the N-word. So go back and check that if you haven't seen it. So here's the exchange between myself and Daphne. Okay. Daphne wrote to me, she said, I have to rewind to get the glue. And then I wrote back to Daphne, I love this prophetic statement and reminder that sometimes we do have to rewind to understand the blessing. And you also know that I'll be using it as a topic, and that's why it's here today. So here we are rewinding, rewinding with Daphne and reminding ourselves of the goodness that comes from retracing our steps and what I call trusting our track record. You have to trust your track record of what God calls the path I prepared. Thus, with my guiding scripture of what it takes, I'm going to add a new ingredient today. I decided that it should not always be an R word from a co-author, but an R person as a glue speaker. So joining me on screen for this for this message and making her glue debut, please welcome Roger Carol Rogers. What's going on, Roger Carol?
Hey, everybody.
Oh, good. Oh, look, Daphne's coming in, checking in. So Chicago is well represented over here on Facebook. Oh, wait. By the way, Toy came in from LinkedIn. I want to mention that. Toy came in from LinkedIn. And then here's Daphne on Facebook. And Daphne, I hope you heard me give you that shout out. See, you started today's message. Roger Carol, how you doing today?
I am fabulous.
All right, we starting something new. So how do you feel about your glue debut?
Well, because of the topic, I feel very comfortable. I have some interesting perspectives, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get it kicked off, right? Oh, okay. So think of it. Many of us have heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And that originates from an African proverb and conveys the message that it takes many people, the village, to provide a safe, healthy environment for children, where children are given the security they need to develop and flourish and to be able to realize their hopes and dreams. Now, most of us can relate to that when we look back and think about some of the influential people in our lives. In fact, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath to put in what is your village status. I want you to put your village status in the chat. Now, I put that in the intro. I said, be prepared to come and put in your village status. And here's a sample of what a village status is. My status is I'm an uncle, I'm a brother, I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm a babysitter. And please use BBS. If you want to just use initials, don't put BS for babysitter. Put BS. Put BBS. So if you don't want to type it out fast, just put your initial. What are your initials? Who are you in the village? So I'm going to give you a minute because there's a delay on the tape. I'm going to give you a minute to put that in the chat. Those are mine. Those are my village credentials. What are your village credentials?
While they're putting those in, Sporty, let me say what mine are. I'm an aunt. I'm a sister. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. I am a grandmother. I am a mother. I am I think a phenomenal cheerleader. And so, and I do speaking also. So I think of myself as that's who I am in the village.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you added that the adjective, not just a cheerleader, a phenomenal cheerleader. Was that where you put it with cheerleader?
Yes.
Yeah, phenomenal. Because everybody should, and we're going to talk about this, by the way. See, you can't make this up. Me and Roger Carroll didn't practice. I put some stuff on paper, but we're rolling with this, and I'm going to talk about cheerleaders. I'm going to talk. Well, let me say, I'm going to talk about the quality of our village. Okay, so here's what Daphne said. Daphne, she's the big mama. So does that is that a grandmother too? Is that one of your terms, Roger Carroll?
Big mama and can be a grandmother, but I also think a big mama is the one who's like the overseer of the family. I'm not there yet.
No. Okay. When I was growing up, I grew up in Grant Projects, and I lived there were 11 apartments on each floor, and they were lettered. I lived in the I apartment. And then 2 doors away from us in the G apartment, we had a woman, and her name to us was Big Mama. Yeah, her name was actually Pearl Wilkerson, but everybody just called her Big Mama. And I laugh as I think about that, because when I was small, Big Mama must have been in her 50s, and I envisioned her as somebody that was in her 80s. You know how. Yes. So when we're young age, you think about it, hey, I just hit 67 a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think this is what 67 looked like. And even when people say to me, oh, well, no, you look 40. I say, no, I'm 67 and I'm taking all my years. You just need to redefine what 67 looks like, because this is what it's got to look like. What's your comment on that, Roger Carroll?
Well, in terms of how the perspective on how old someone is and how they look, I think it has changed clearly as we have gotten older, but also we don't look the same as our parents did at these same ages. Yeah. We've had the benefit of lots of things, some of it cosmetic, but
yeah,
to help and that.
Yeah. Can't knock technology. And then Daphne, that's right, I'm watching everything. Okay. Now see, this is where the hesitation. I don't know what Daphne's watching. Do you know what she's watching, Roger Carroll? Did you see that?
No, I can't. I'm trying to remember what was said that she would have said that.
All right. Okay. Well, okay. As people, even if you're watching the videotape, by the way, put in your credentials for the village, and we're going to move on. And as people put their stuff in, I'll come back and take a look at that. It's not a problem. All right. But here's what I want to do first is I want to go back to what I put in as my credentials, and then think about what Roger Carroll put in as hers. Okay. What you'll notice is that even though I had my status prepared in advance, I didn't put an age cap on children. See, so when I said, for your village, I didn't put an age cap on it, because regardless of where you are in life, and Roger Carroll ended up doing the same thing. And I tell you, we didn't practice this, but regardless of where you are in life, the truth is you are always dealing with a child or someone's child and yourself as a child. And I'm just adding this background, and I'll add this in the background as you continue to fill in what your village status is. And that is a child is defined as a young human being below the age of puberty or below the legal age of majority, or a son or daughter of any age, or an immature or irresponsible person. And see, you add those all up, and you get what we find in the Bible in Matthew 10:15, or Luke 18:15 through 17. Truly, I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. We got a comment from somebody. Daphne said that my perspective of Big Mama, I'm watching everything. Oh, okay. Big Mama's checking out everything. Okay. So with that definition that I gave about what a child is, what I want to do is recognize that I bet we can all relate to being a happy child. So let's now go to the source of our first step in childhood, and that is of motherhood. And we might find a step into motherhood with grandmotherhood from our person, Roger Carol Rogers, and she's going to talk to us about the word rejoice.
Well, being a first-time grandmother, at an age where many of my friends are already great grandmothers, has been a joy. It is really, really joyful for me in many, many ways. And today, I even got a greater joy a few minutes before this even started, because I got a video from my granddaughter's daycare center where she was taking her first steps, and I almost cried. She was pushing this little thing along, and she was going uphill, and they were cheering her on. I was like, yay, that's my baby. So there is a level of joy in being a grandmother that I think I felt when I first became a mother, but it is still different. But what is the same, and maybe even higher, is the level, another R word, responsibility. I have an extreme responsibility to this child. I know some things that she needs to know. She doesn't know that, but I know some things that I feel will help her in that process. And one of the things that I think I did as a parent, and I am going to hopefully do as a grandparent, is to remember that my goal is not to have this cute little child, this cute little baby here all the time. My responsibility is to ensure that we have a responsible adult in the future, not a child forever. So I feel a lot of responsibility in getting that responsible adult there. And as that happens, there's a level of rigor, a level of discipline, a level of focus and intent that has to go into what I'm doing as a grandmother. As a mother, I was just trying to stay alive. I was tired. I was working. I was doing all that. As a grandmother, I can be very intentional about what has to happen, I think, in her life. And I can make that happen to an extent that, I couldn't do as an adult, as a parent. But fortunately, because my goal then was, as it is now, to have a responsible adult, I was able to raise a responsible adult. And I think another R word that I have to have that makes it joyful for me as a grandparent is refuge. That this is a place, my home, wherever it is a place that she can come. Whenever she messes up, when her parents can't stand her, when she has done something that they don't like, when she just needs to have some peace and just have someone who is focused on her because they want to have other children, I will be a place of refuge for my grandchildren, whether that's individually or as a group, a place where they will be able to relax and refresh. And so I think those are the kinds of things that I think really can help us to be joyful as parents and grandparents. I don't know if anybody else has had those experiences or what you might think when you think of the joy that comes in being a grandparent or a parent.
And in fact,
your other village roles, that's really what we need to look at, I think, are the village roles. I know just being a mentor has brought me great joy when I see somebody be successful. So what some of the things are that you might have experienced in your village role.
Yeah, and that's a challenge and a request to everybody. Put something in the chat that things that you've experienced as your village role. But I want to take your RR and make it a RRR, and then I told Toy I'd get her in there, and that's the revive, relax, refresh, and then revive, because you have to. See, like what you're saying is what happens to the child when the parents are now considering having more children. Of course, I'm the expert because I have no children, right? So therefore, but one of the things that I always make it a point of doing is when someone has a second child or a third child, whatever the number, but especially when they have a second child and the first child, there's some years between them where the child speaks English and is understand all the love and attention they're giving, I give that child a title. I will immediately say, oh, so you're a big sister now. Oh, you're a big brother now. Because the tendency, the human tendency, and again, I'm going to get this from observing it as a non-parent, but is that the parents, boom, oh, I got a new child. And everything is on the little baby taking the first step. And so sometimes, parents, and we love you parents, but you've got to be, that's that R that Roger Carroll mentioned, the responsibility. You're responsible for now 2 lives, not just one. And it's so important to continue to revive the spirit of the child who is now moved into a new role of responsibility, because they're now, and I say, are you doing a good job of being a big sister or big brother? And you could see the difference. If you haven't done it, check it out, because it doesn't matter if it's a newborn, just as long as it's the oldest child, give them a title.
That helps a great deal. I will remember that when Ella becomes a big sister. She's big sister Ella. To go from there.
And let me tell you, I'm going to jump in. I'm sorry I had to cut you off, but since you mentioned her name, we got to give her extra shout out. That Ella, that Ella is something else. When she took those first steps, I'm sure in the video when they clapped, she said, hold on now, I got something else for you. This little girl has so much personality. And of course, she slapped my ego out of the way, because the first time I met her and she smiled, I said, oh, look, she likes me. She smiled. Roger Carroll said, I hate to burst your bubble, but she smiles at everyone.
That's who she is. She is Miss Personality. Which again is from a village perspective, and my saying I'm a cheerleader, those are the things that we have to cheer. We have to cheer those things for our children, because the world will constantly try to pull those things out of them, try to focus them on the negative. We want all of those positive things in their lives to be taken into account. So, Sporty, what's our next R word?
Our next R word, and before I go to it, I just want to put one more dot on this one of rejoice that I'm going to put in the chat after the broadcast is over. There's a book in the Bible that it's called the Book of Joy, because of the number of times it uses the word rejoice and joy. And it just came to mind, so I can't remember what it is, but I'm going to check that. I'm going to research and find out what it is. But our next word is based on the fact that I think not everybody should have a voice in the village. But before we do that, let's see, there's a comment from, Toy. Yep, we got your revive in there. Thank you, Toy. Thank you for, and see, just that little positivity by Toy rolls us right again. See, you can't make this stuff up, right into the next word. And that is, like I say, not everybody deserves a voice in the building. In the village. It takes a village, but you've got to be careful to not give everybody a voice in the village. So our next word is remonstrate. Remonstration is what Lorenzo sent, but I remonstrate. And this one, we got to break it down because it's not something that's in our automatic vocabulary. So we want to tell you, okay? But let me introduce you to the word remonstrate. It is a verb, okay, that means to make a forcefully reproachful protest. And to use it in a sentence, he turned angrily to remonstrate with Tommy. You see, remonstrate has its roots in a Latin verb meaning to show. And it used to mean to make it plain, which is why remonstrate is actually a word that puts the glow of respectability on the action of yelling at someone or telling them that they're wrong. So yeah, we like it when someone, blah, 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 yeah, because that's remonstrating. And we're putting them in their place. We're making it plain. And that's what I want to say to you is that's why I say not everybody deserves a seat in your village, because in your village, you must beware of those whose advice consistently, if not constantly, tell you what you can't do. See, Roger Carroll talked about what she's going to do and how she's going to help Ella when Ella comes over. And in the process, what she didn't say, but what was in the background is she's also preparing her daughter, Simone, who is that first line of mentorship, of villageship for Roger Carroll. And that is in preparing her granddaughter, she has to prepare her daughter as well. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, and all I'm saying that for is a reminder, Daphne, there's that word again, that see, sometimes we take for granted what our role is, but our role is every step of the way. Stop and rejoice and celebrate yourself every step of the way, and recognize that sometimes we mistake the cliche of getting negative people out of our lives as meaning that they're bad people. They're not. They are not necessarily negative people. They're not necessarily bad people. See, negativity is a spirit of opposition and doubt at a time where you need encouragement and support. It is also a spirit of personal fear that causes these people to feed you caution in place of confidence. So we hear it used a lot when someone decides to be an entrepreneur. It's called stepping out on faith. And so, oh, you're going to leave your job for see, they're afraid. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they're giving you a spirit of fear for your well-being. So they're not necessarily bad people, but they're bringing a negative spirit to the fold. You want to say something on that, Roger Carroll? I love when I can see you.
Well, what I totally agree with everything that you've said, but as a parent and having watched the Big Mama, who was my mother-in-law in my life, you have to have the right village. Yes. Another R word, because my mother-in-law was like a sheepdog with sheep. If she saw a wolf coming, she would just ease it on out of the way. She would get it away from her grandchildren. She was very, very intentional about who was going to interact with her grandchildren. Not everybody could be around them. They could not go to everybody's house on her block. That was not happening. So it had to be the right village, mm-hmm. In terms of what she thought that was. And it seemed to have worked. I have to remember that, mm-hmm. that not everybody can influence and come into the sphere of my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. And see, you hit me with something that I thought of, since it's Glue Wednesday and, I got God going on. But David in the Bible, we look at the story of David and Goliath and we see, the shepherd boy defeated the giant, but we don't look at some of the doubt that was in David's village before he took that battle. His brothers didn't particularly care for him. And even, when the king tried to give him his armor to fight, David said, "Nah, this don't fit." I can't work with this. And then say, well, who are you? So here's the point that Roger Carroll made me think of. Who are you? I think it might have been Goliath. I said, who are you to think that you can beat me? And David said, it wasn't Goliath, but David said, excuse me. He said, when I was tending my sheep, if a lion came and tried to take one of my sheep, I protected that sheep. Mm-hmm. I fought them off with a club and I beat lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, Wizard of Oz. Okay, but he said, that's who I am, is I am the shepherd of my flock. And whatever it takes, like Roger Carroll's grandmother, whatever it takes is poison in my village, I'm getting it out. Mm-hmm. So yes, not everybody deserves a seat, a voice in the village. So again, here are some synonyms and antonyms of demonstrate. And synonyms: criticize severely and abuse. And so that's nasty. Antonyms: approval and sanctioning. Because we need the sanctioning. We need someone. A child needs you to confirm that they're going in the right direction. When Ella took her first steps, they didn't say, okay, Ella, you go. No, they said, okay, do this, hold this, do that. And then they cheered her on. See how all the words come into play. They rejoiced as they reminded her of what she could do. They let her know they related to what she was doing. They rejoiced as she came forward. They didn't remonstrate. They didn't criticize her if she tripped and fell a little. They reminded her of the time that she walked. And that's what we want to make sure that we are doing. So remember, okay? And so let me just say that when we look at these synonyms and antonyms, I want to just add this little thought, and that is, we always hear me say, choose your messengers carefully. Now I want to say, choose your villagers carefully.
When you said choose your villagers carefully, we have to remember that we still have a village that has to support us. At whatever age we are right now, as you said, we're still children. And so we've got to be sure that we've got a village that is supporting who we are. That is, because if it's not, it's going to be sucking away the strength that we have. So we've got to have a supportive village now, which is why I've always been on Glue Wednesdays.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, she tells you, she said, you got me through the pandemic. And you know what? And also to your point again, Roger Carroll, where we're talking about there's no age limit on childhood. You got to have the support. You know, actually, we need it more as big children because we think we know so much more. And so therefore, you know, when a little kid, you say, go this way, they just look at you and then they go that way. But as we mature, you say, go this way. They say, no, I think I need to go there. And see, we need to have someone that we respect so that when they reroute us, see all these art, this is Toy. This is why I knew your Revive was going to make it in there. This is called, by the way, the Bader-Meinhof syndrome, where once you get something planted in your psyche, you look for it because you see it more. So since the letter R is our focus, a lot of R words are going to come up in our conversation. You can use that when you're writing a paper, an essay, a resume, a letter, an email. So remember that, you know, what you do, it's first. So we always give you some advice, you know, think about the words and the topic that you want to use, that you want to make sure you get. So write those words down first. And then as you start to write your, whatever you're going to write, those words start to come up and versions of those words start to come up. So just as easy as I said, I want you to do that, I need you to remember it. And that's our next word, remember. And Roger Carroll, what might we need to remember about what it takes?
Well, it's the first thing that I remembered about what it takes is that it was a song by Junior Walker and the All-Stars.
What does it take?
I loved it. The saxophone, all of that. And what that did for me when I started remembering that song was to realize that I had to take the memories of who my grandmother was, of who my mother and my mother-in-law were as grandmothers to my daughter, Simone, and use those as I go to raise this child in the village, as I go to raise Ella. Remember what the memories are. What are the lessons that I learned, you know, from them? Many lessons, both good and bad. My mother was one of those folks who always saw the glass half empty. And so she was always saying, oh, don't do this. It might be dangerous. Don't do this. Don't go out there. You got to do this. You got to do that. And so Simone had to fight against that in terms of doing the things that she wanted to do. And my mother was always a person, her first go-to emotion was negativity. So I have to remember that I want my first go-to emotion around Ella to be joy all the time, so that she sees, you know, what that is. And part of the memories, though, that both my mother and my mother-in-law gave me is that children are very resilient. That's our word. And that, you know, we could all remember, I think we may all still have those scars that we got when we burned ourselves. I have one of those. When we fell off our bike, I have one of those. When we got caught in a a bush, and I had a horrible scar that had to be sewn up on my arm from that. So, but we're resilient. We got through it. But we have to, I think, even more than the physical lessons, the physical scars, the physical things that are there. We have to remember that kids can come back because they are resilient. But part of their being able to come back from some emotional things, from some mental things, is that we give them a redo. That we are able to apologize when we mess up and give them the opportunity and the door to apologize when they mess up. And that it's not all about punishment. They may get punished, they may get disciplined, but that remember that we can redo a situation and make it a positive in their lives also. I think that one of the things that I really, really, really have to think about many times as I focus on being sure that Ella has the things that I want her to be involved in is that she is that that I am privileged, not an R word, but that I am privileged to have a grandchild who is healthy, who is smart, who has everything that God has given to her, and that is kind of like this, not so much lump of clay, but a canvas that I can paint on in some kind of way. So I want to be sure that those things come into play also. I had another R word I was going to use, and I can't find it. Oh, I know. That I thought about the word, when I thought about memories, I thought about the word and remembering things, the word regime. My mother was very methodical about many things. So that gave us a discipline in our lives that as we look at how society is right now, especially after the pandemic, people just many times just kind of willy-nilly doing things, that I have to remember that Ella's going to need a level of discipline when she goes to bed. Fortunately, she has that. The things that she does, these are the things you do on Saturday morning. Before you can go out of the house, you've got to be sure that you have made up your bed, done your chores, then you can go out and play. Before you can look at television, you have to come in here, do your homework, and you may not look at television because you may not finish your homework. You get through your homework, get that done.
No, flashbacks, stop.
But those are the things that allowed us to be who we are.
Yes.
They made us the people, they made us the responsible adults that we think we are, at least, and allowed us to be, who our parents have been proud of in the grade.
And like I said, I'm sure a lot of old school people got that, because and again, not slapping the wrist, parents or responsible adults, but oh yeah, you let your kid do that. We had different opportunities and options. The chores, they don't have the chores that we used to have. I mean, one of our chores was cleaning the walls. Well, guess what? They invented paint, said you don't have to clean the walls. So just little things like that. But I want to also add something, touch on something. You talked about your mother. You would go to negative, and again, now it's called, they've got a term, it's called the negativity bias. So it's not just Roger Carroll's mother, it's you, viewer, everyone, all of us. We have in our mind what's called the negativity bias, which is 8 to 9 out of 10 times when something happens, our first response is negative. And again, now we got to go back to what we said about getting negative people out of our lives. They don't have to be bad. They don't have, negative and bad are not necessarily the same. Negative means, did they die? Because they were in a car accident. Did they die? We immediately go to death. When a car accident, you know what? You can just bump. It's a car accident and nobody gets hurt. The light changed and the person behind started too soon, but we instantly go to a bad outcome. And that's called the negativity bias. There's also something that sounds like it's the opposite of the negativity bias called the confirmation bias. but actually it's not totally opposite, because with the confirmation bias, what we do is we look for something to support how we feel, regardless of whether or not we're right or wrong, or how bad what we're doing is. But no, we need to support our negative actions. And so sometimes we look for the confirmation bias. Oh yeah, no, it's, you know what, in childhood, well, everybody else is doing it. That's a confirmation bias of a negativity.
One of those things to remember, because my mother would always say, I don't care what everybody else is doing. This is what you're going to do.
If they went and jumped off the mountain, would you jump off too? And we ain't never been near no mountains. and then you also talked about scars, but you talked about what? Physical scars. Yeah, I got scarred from burn. I got scarred from the bushes. I got a scar. Oh God, did we lead the league in scraping knees? How many kids haven't done that? But we got to also look at the emotional scars. You know, I had a friend say to me, well, you know what? I'm 65 years old. So I'm taking it slow on this relationship because I've been hurt before. And I looked at them. I said, well, I hope you've been hurt before.
You're 65.
I said, why is remembering? Why are you going to let your poor choices in the past make this new person suffer? It's something that in relationships we have to be conscious of. Your past relationships, they weren't bad relationships. They were things for you to remember, for you to learn how you wanted to reroute. Oh, I thought I liked this. This is what I wanted in a mate or a boyfriend or girlfriend. No, I really didn't want that. And so now that doesn't mean that was a bad relationship. That meant you just found out something about yourself. You revived, you refreshed. Yes.
When you talk about relationships, when I looked at Proverbs 22 and did some study on it, one of the things about all of Proverbs is that, a significant part of Proverbs is that it talks about relationships. And three things that it consistently does is to say that we have to be consistent, we have to have tact, and we have to have discipline to form any kind of relationship that we have. We have to constantly be communicating with the person, have a consistent and trustworthy personality. We just can't say anything to them, think before we speak. And then to be disciplined and intentional about that, because I think now, as I have moved away from Chicago, if I'm going to maintain those relationships, I've got to text people, I have to call them, I have to be sure that it's there. But as back to the village, we've got to be sure that we've got consistency, tact, and discipline as we raise up these children.
Amen. And as we're coming to the close, just in case Toy is still on there or anybody, I wanted to say next week's letter is going to be the letter P. So if you need to go, put in a word that begins with the letter P for next week, which I will also be asking for at the end. And then, see, look at that. See, Daphne's got to go. So she's got to run, but put in a word with the letter P. And if you want to come back and put it in later, that's fine as well. But while Roger Carroll was talking about those scars, by the way, I quickly made up, as Zelda mentioned earlier, a sportyism, and that is for scar. Stuff we can't act like we don't remember. And those emotional scars impact those relationships that we have. I don't like this kind of a guy, this kind of a woman. And then we see that in the other person before they show it. We don't give them the chance to show, no, I'm not that bad relationship you had. I'm a new person. And we say we don't do that, but we do. So please don't act like you don't remember those scars, those emotional scars that you've lived through. Recognize that you have and choose to go above and beyond them. So again, as we think about it, at the bottom down there, you see Proverbs again, 22:6. Just a reminder, train up a child in the way he or she should go. Even when they are old, they will not depart from it. So as we depart, Roger Carroll, you got a final comment?
Nope, I really don't.
Okay. And Toy's got her P word in for next week. And then, remember, it's a P word. I didn't say, we're going to go P. Okay. is a word beginning with the letter P. All right, thank you, Toy. And this is her first time on the broadcast. I appreciate you for jumping in there. But what we just remember, this is what it takes. What we talked about today, this is what it takes. Because the village has so many ingredients. We've made it, shrunk it down into just over 40-minute conversation that went super fast. But it takes a lot, but it takes you. And it takes you sharing not just this video, but sharing what you know. Because you have to earn your seat at the village. You can lose your seat. Don't take your seat for granted. Go on.
No, I was gonna say you cannot take your seat because if you mess up, if you cause people not to trust you,
yes,
if you hurt intentionally, you lose your seat.
You lose your seat. You lose your seat. And P.S. by the way, back to the negative people, you may not hurt intentionally. You may hurt by reflex. So you got to do what Daphne said earlier. You got to be looking. You have to wait, don't everything I do is no. Oh, wow. Did I just do that? I wasn't thinking. Come on, y'all. We forget. That's why we had remember as one of the words. Thank you, Vic. All right. But that's what it's all about. This is Glue Wednesday. God's love undoes everything. That's what you want to remember. As you put your village together, make sure that you're at the head of the village, because even if you're responsible for the village, you have to be responsible from the head. That doesn't mean at the top. The head doesn't mean the top. It means the soul. Okay, because what Roger Carroll talked about is her granddaughter's village. So so Ella's here on the village because we're working on Ella's village. The flow chart is we're working on Ella's village, but Roger Carroll has to have a secure spot until Ella can claim what she knows her village is teaching her according to the wonderful things that her Uncle Sporty gets to say to her. I'm keeping my seat, boy. I don't care that she's smiling at everybody with a little cute sound. So just remember, you don't need to hump to get over. You need to keep it together. And that's what Glue Wednesday is all about. I want to thank my co-authors, Daphne, Jose, Victor, and Lorenzo, and Roger Carroll Rogers, who made her Glue debut. I like this new format. It's kind of cool. So we'll see how it works. Our next word, glue, for real, will be September 14th. And we're going to use the letter P. I'm not going to use the letter O. I'm skipping the O right now. I'm going to go with the P as, I'm not, notice I didn't say I'm going to go to P. I'm going to go with the letter P for the next glue message. And we don't know what that message is going to be. So don't you beat your brain out trying to, what do I need to, a word that begins with the letter P. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Okay. Have a good nest. And I say, isn't a good nest because I don't know whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening that you're watching this message, but isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? I'm going to not click off or just because of the delay, but our broadcast is over. Again, thank you so much, Roger Carroll. I'm going to look and see if there's anything in the comments that anybody wants to share before they go, as well as put in some words that you want to be a co-author, a word that begins with the letter P. So our words, Roger Carroll, was this remarkable? You were a remarkable co-host.
I rejoiced. I had fun. I like to talk. Mm-hmm. So it works.
And we always put a cherry on everything. Talking does not necessarily mean communicating.
That's true.
And so, see, we have to learn all these things, people, because the truth is the number one communication skill is listening. 2 ears, 1 mouth, so that you can hear twice as much as you say, so that when you do talk, it makes a difference. Yes, Dr. Carroll.
Because you are very good at listening, and I'm kind of good at listening, we can weave in what's being said by others, the comments and stuff. So that always works.
Yeah, and that's why you see on my name, the master of listening. Because Communicating is about listening. And this goes to our village message as well. This is why everybody doesn't deserve a seat in the village. You hear what they're talking about, what their spirit is saying, and you have to say, no, can't give them a village. And yes, by the way, that just means maybe you're not going to give them the first 5 rows.
And they might be okay for somebody else's village.
Yeah. And they may one day make it into your village.
Right.
You might not be in theirs.
Right.
Too many conversations.
All right. Okay.
Thanks again, Roger Carroll. Thank everybody for viewing on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And again, by the way, if you have comments on YouTube, you need to put it in the comments. Excuse me, not the chat area, because the chat thread area gets erased when the video ends. But on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, you can put your comments or your letter for next week in the chat, in the thread. Thanks. God bless you, and have a safe week. Ciao.